Hello, my friend. How are you doing? Happy second day of summer. It is officially, we're full on into it, the second day of summer. And when that happens, I like to think ahead of how far is it till fall? And I know that might seem a bit strange, but I looked and it's something like 93 days until autumn begins, which tells me I have 93 fabulous days to enjoy the summer weather. We wait for it, we wait for it, we wait for it, and then it's over before we know it. So sometimes if you count how many days you have, if you happen to know, then you can actually appreciate how short it is and really get the most out of every day, which I like to do every day anyway. But that's not actually the topic of this week's episode of the Back to Me podcast. Welcome to the Back to Me podcast. This is Heather. This week's episode is actually about expectations and how that can be good or bad. And I kind of have expectations and assumptions are very similar in the context, in the way I'm going to talk about them. So I was listening recently to some audio. As you know, I am a avid listener to audiobooks and podcasts, and I'm always looking to find interesting things. I'm always looking to learn interesting things. And this particular one was talking about how in the 60s, I feel like it was like 1968, maybe it took place somewhere in the United States. A group of researchers went into a school and had arranged with the principal to give an IQ test to all of the students. And I'm old enough to remember when we had standardized testing and they were testing all the students to their academic levels. And we even had something called participation where they tested all the physical prowess of the students. I always felt like I didn't do very well. I wonder if that influenced my life in general. Probably. But that's for another topic. Today we're talking about this research that they did. So they gave all the children an IQ test. And then privately, they told the teachers, I think it was like the top 20% or something like that, like the top performers in the class who on the IQ test who are expected to probably accelerate and get ahead during that school year. The test took place at the beginning of the school year. But of course, researchers are tricky because that's not actually what they did. What they were testing was what the expectation of the teacher had upon the performance of the students. So they just randomly selected students, not based on their IQ score, just a random sampling of students. And they told the teachers, which the random students that they had said, I think they called them spurters. You know, these students scored really high. They'll expect to do well. And by the end of the year, those students were doing well, doing much better than they had been and doing much better than the rest of the class because the teachers expected them to. So they treated them differently, probably even subconsciously on some level, because they thought they would do better. They did better. Now just pause and think about that one for a minute. Okay. So I can think of, and I'm sure you can think of it too, like times in your life where people didn't think you would do well, so you didn't. Or maybe you were stubborn and just did well to spite them, which is a whole another way of being, or where people expected you to do well, and so you did. And I hope you celebrated that, by the way. And what kind of expectations we have for ourselves. So going back to the influence of others for a moment. So I remember when I was in the corporate world and I had staff, one of the things that I did, maybe only subconsciously, was I always expected my staff to know what they were good at, what they needed to get done, expected them to come to me if they needed me, and I expected them to act like professionals. So guess what? They did. They did act like professionals. They did take no, control maybe. They did take ownership for what they were working on, what their role was, for all of those things that makes you an independent person, able to think for yourself and be successful. And that's how I treated them, and that's how they acted. And I don't know. I don't know that I did that consciously on purpose until I realized at one point one of my staff who I had worked with many years before through someone else had said that about me to a coworker who knew me indirectly, and I got that information back from a third party. And I paused. I was like, "Oh my gosh, yeah, I guess I do that." So then I started paying attention and making sure I did it more, because I think that's important. I think it's important in staff. I think it's important in people. I think it's important in children. They will, for large and part, live up to you or live down to your expectations. So let's talk about you. So if you start an endeavor, say an easy one that everybody always starts, you can probably guess. What does everybody do January 1st? I'm going to lose weight. And if you have done that before and failed in the past, you may just expect or assume that you'll fail again. And because you have that expectation and that assumption and that coloring from past experience, it's going to influence you going forward. Maybe you won't even realize that you sabotage yourself, because you could say, well, I never achieved this goal anyway, so I'll have the double scoop of triple chocolate heavenly hash ice cream. I deserve it because I never succeed anyway. Guilty. I've done that to myself 100%. I understand. I understand where it comes from. But so having the realization. So as you know, one of my tenets of making changes, the first thing you need is, maybe you don't know that, go back and listen to previous episodes. One of the first things you need to make a change is to be aware that you have a habit or you have a way of being, or an awareness that there is something that you want to change. And once you're aware of it, you start to notice it. It's like if I told you, to go out and count the red cars, you'd say, oh my gosh, there's so many red cars. Maybe there are, maybe there aren't, but you're noticing them now. So when you notice that, when you enter into an agreement with yourself, that you already assume or expect a certain outcome, that is probably going to happen without some kind of intervention on your behalf. The intervention probably has to come from you. So what goal are you working on? Let's just pause there. What goal are you working on? Maybe you're not working on one, but if you were going to work on one, if you thought, I'd like to have a goal, if you were going to work on a goal, what would it be? Okay, check, got it. And what do you think, what do you expect to happen? And you might say, well, of course I'm going to be successful. But deep down, where you wouldn't tell anybody, are you having a different expectation or assumption of how it's going to turn out? And that's okay. That's not a judgment. I mean, that's just part of being a human being. That it could be a protected device, it could be past experience and when you've tried it before, but just be aware that you have that in the background, and that's going to start to influence the decisions that you make and the steps that you take forward. Maybe the procrastination that you do, maybe just the avoidance of getting to it, getting to your goal. Procrastination is a way of sabotaging yourself when you want to get something done. So it also reminds me of Buddhism, so beginner's mind. If you can find that place where you have a goal that you want, and you can view that goal without being colored by if you tried it previously. If you can find that goal without being colored by yeah, but I did this before and I'm no good at this and this never works. I mean, I'll do it fine, but it's not going to work. obviously it's not going to work because you don't think it's going to work. So try to go in with a beginner's mind, a curious mind of, what if I could do this? What if I could be successful at this? What would that look like? And then once you get that picture of what would it look like when I was successful? What would it feel like? What would it be like when I hit this XYZ place that I want to be? And then just get a really clear picture of it. And then imagine walking backwards from that to today and all of the things you did. They don't have to be super specific, just an imagining, because I'm not good at those specifics either. It's just like an imagining of me doing some things that will get me there and being excited that I'm that much closer each time I do it. And then, whoa, the assumption and the expectation that you had was wrong, because then you hit your goal, right? That is my thought for this week. Don't let assumption. If I assume that I'm going to hit my goal, that's a good thing. That's what I was trying to say. Assumptions and expectations can go both ways. If I assume that I'm going to do an amazing job and hit my goal, then obviously I'm going to. And if I expect 100% that by the end of this year, I'm going to, now maybe not be, a Billboard hit or anything, because I don't sing, but if I fully expect to have some success in the parameters that I want for my life by the end of this year, then I'm going to be successful. But our minds play tricks on us. So see if you can envision that goal and see if you can hear the little voice, the little yeah, but voice that is assuming or expecting you not to be able to do it. You could even see if you can tell where that voice is coming from. But once you're aware of it, you can tell it, no, you're wrong. I'm assuming, I'm expecting, and I'm going to be there, and this is how I'm going to get there. And if you need help, as always, my friend, I'm available to have a conversation with you. You can go check out, I have a new quiz on my website, by the way. You should go check it out, prosperityflowcoaching.com. There's a quiz there to figure out which of the 6 areas of wellness you might need to be working on if you're not really sure where to begin. The 6 areas that I talk about are relationships, professional, financial, emotional, physical, and spiritual. So if you go through that quiz, you can see which one potentially you might want to start with. And there's also a masterclass up there to have a quick listen to that I did a few months ago. I'm going to be updating that one soon, but there's a masterclass up there as well for you to have a listen to help you try and figure out what do you want to do and where do you want to go and how are you going to get there. But all of that on the website. If you do want to talk to me directly, as always, send me a message. I would love to have a chat with you to see how I can help you. This is Heather. This is the Back to Me podcast. I hope you have an amazing day. Check out this Friday's podcast, by the way. A super amazing person, Shelly from Powerful Women's Group. That's all for me. Have a great day, everybody. Take care. I'll see you